For Lexington's Ethereal Brewing, their ties to Western North Carolina are personal.
My business partner, I also went to high school with him. His family moved out to Asheville, North Carolina when we graduated high school.
That's helped co-founder Andrew Bishop connect in a special way with one of the country's most vibrant craft brewery communities.
Something as simple as trying to ask how these hops work or how you get a flavor in a beer can turn into, these people have really impacted my life.
So it hurt him to see Hurricane Helene devastate some of those same areas he had come to know.
Hearing how much it affected these guys and just knowing what's going on out there, we wanted to be able to try to help as much as we could.
Ethereal quickly put together a donation drive, taking in essential items which they will drive down to a drop-off point near North Carolina Tuesday morning.
The biggest focus is going to be on our most vulnerable.
It's help that they know is crucial, given Kentucky's recent history with natural disasters.
We have employees from Eastern and Western Kentucky. We have breweries, friends, and family that we know in those locations that were affected.
So they hope the kindness of fellow Kentuckians comes through as they look to give back to these communities in their time of need.
For people to take the time and spend their money and spend their time to bring it down to us or to wherever else, it definitely means a lot. Whatever you can do to really make a difference, a little bit's going to go a long way.
In Lexington, Jeremy Toms, WKYT.